What a historic event. My name is L.J. Stambuk. I'm the President and CEO of the World Affairs Council of Charlotte, and I'm delighted on behalf of the World Affairs Council and all of you here to wish a very warm Charlotte Southern welcome to President Solis and his delegation from Costa Rica. We will have a video of Costa Rica coming up as you eat. It is an amazing video. I had the opportunity to preview it last night, so please do pay attention. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Someone defines themselves when they reconnect with their spirit, their true essence, the nature that shapes who you are. Who am I? I am an alluring concentration of beauty, rainforests, beaches, and biodiversity. I live in the heart of the Americas, guarded by 2 seas. I am the deep green that entices those seeking relaxation and adventure. And I am so much more. In my essence live the warmth and authenticity of my people. People with open arms who look forward towards the future and welcome opportunities. I am a unique, happy, and caring nation that expresses itself through the diversity of its cultures. I am cradle of human talent. Proud people who embrace challenges. I am a nation governed in peace with a solid, long-standing democracy. I stand behind health, education, and the pursuit of self-development as the cornerstones of happiness. In my essence lie the preservation and care for the environment, a model to the world. I breathe the riches of my land, and I recognize the wit of my people, ever capable of giving more than expected. I am a trustworthy and reliable nation, distinguished by the value of what I create. Human development, innovation, and a proven international competitiveness set me apart and enable me to export quality to the world. Those who come to know me are surprised, amazed. My greatest aspirations can be found in my concentrated essence. I am a country that attracts those who seek the value of excellence and the commitment to sustainability. I have much to offer those wishing to purchase, invest, produce, and develop. I have the required human and technological capabilities to achieve this. I rediscover myself by searching within. I find myself in what is vital, in what is true. I rediscover what is important. I am green. I am happiness. I am solidarity. I am talent. I am innovation. I am quality. I am diversity. I am concentration. I am essential Costa Rica.
Please. And now it's my honor and delight to introduce to you the person who actually made this visit of the Costa Rica delegation a reality, David G. Dalton, the President and CEO of GMI. David.
I know you've got a lot to eat, so please continue eating while I try to make a slight introduction. Just a couple of things. I'd like to get a raise of hands of those folks that have been to Costa Rica on pleasure and on travel and tourism. Look at that. Okay, almost the whole place. Okay, how many here have been there on business? Look at that. You know, one of the main reasons is because we have a direct flight from Charlotte to San Jose. Those that have not been there, do you realize it's a very quick 4 hours? It takes less time to get to Costa Rica than it does to California. And do you realize it costs less to fly U.S., eventually American Airlines, direct from here to Costa Rica than it does to California? Who wants to go to California when you go to Costa Rica? Well, guys, believe it or not, I was a half century old before I made my first trip to Costa Rica. I had a lot of friends that went deep sea fishing down there, but I never had the opportunity. I had 2 lighting manufacturers that approached me and said, we need to build product in a low-cost region, but they need to be skilled. We cannot handle Asia. We had been building in Asia for 10 years, but the lead time to have production built there and shipped here to the East Coast was out of the question. They said, we don't want Mexico. There's too much violence. South America will be okay. Is there anything in Central America? I looked in South America. There was no government down there that was stable enough. Somehow I uncovered a little country called Costa Rica. 5 years ago, I made our first trip. After the first trip, I realized this is where I need to be. But the lighting manufacturers have very simple products. And I said, I'm not about to waste this simple product on the quality of the workforce in Costa Rica. Back in the 1940s, the Costa Rican government disbanded their whole military. They put all of their emphasis on education. It's a very young country. The median age of that entire country is 26 years old. We have an operation down there that's going into its 5th year. We have 120 employees. The median age down there is 26 years old. They act like they're 45 years old. They got a can-do attitude. They're very experienced, tremendous. We continue to grow. As we grow, every 4 employees that we hire down there, we hire 1 here. So it's a win-win situation, very collaborative. The greatest thing is, it is, like I said, 4 hours, but right now it's a 2-hour time zone change. So as we leave here and go down, we leave here at 10:30, we're there by 12:30. We still work for a half day. If we need to come back the next day, that's fine. There's no jet lag. When I went to Asia for 10 years, 17 to 24 hours it would take. I would have to leave on a Thursday, get there on a Friday night, have the weekend to recover, and then I start work on Monday. A very hard way of doing work. The logistics, it takes 30 to 45 days to go from Asia to the East Coast. There it's 7 to 10 days. It is a win-win opportunity for us all. There's a lot of service industries down there. The intellect is incredible. I've only been given 3 minutes to speak, so I guess my allotment's over. What I wanted to do is, unfortunately, I took 7 years of French. I don't know how to speak Spanish. I might know 3 words, and I'm not about to butcher the president's name. So I'm going to invite Marco Fernandez, who is a dual citizen of the U.S. and Costa Rica, to come up here and introduce the president. He's been with us for 4 years. He came up in January. He went to Wake Forest University, had an interview on a Thursday. On Friday morning, they called them and said, we want you on our MBA program. So we're excited that in August, he is going to be here in downtown Charlotte at the Wake Forest University getting his MBA, and we're looking forward to having him have a long career with General Microcircuits. Marco, please come on up.
Thank you, Dave, for those kind words. Definitely, for me, it's an honor as a Costa Rican to introduce His Excellency, Mr. President of Costa Rica, Luis Guillermo Solis Rivera. Luis Guillermo is our 47th president. He was born in San Jose, has been a professor, a politician, and a diplomat. Solis served as Chief of Staff of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, subsequently Director General of Foreign Policy Affairs, and he's been a professor of history and political science at the University of Costa Rica. Solis was a Fulbright professor at the University of Michigan at Florida International University. He has written 10 books as an author, co-author, and editor. He studied history at the University of Costa Rica, and subsequently he obtained his master's degree in Latin American Studies, majoring in history and political science. Please, a round of applause for His Excellency and President Luis Guillermo Solis.
Thank you very much. On behalf of my delegation and also on my own, I want to thank you for being here and LJ for organizing this wonderful, wonderful event. I'm really grateful for all your support and also Dave Dalton for his introduction of Costa Rica and all the work he's put forth. And seeing so many young people, students here in the audience, I can now be absolutely certain, because I was before, but now I'm absolutely certain that Charlotte is doing everything right. You've had your young students understanding and getting involved in international affairs with this council. You're doing the right thing. They're becoming global citizens. They already are, but now they have also the opportunity to do this by being witnesses of the kinds of things that we do all the time. And this is one of the most important thing a president can do, is to go out, talk about his country, and learn about the wonderful people that are around, meeting people, having the opportunity to be a part of events such as this one is my privilege, and I thank you very much for making it possible. As it has been said, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor. I've been a professor for 30 years at the University of Costa Rica. Therefore, it is impossible for me not to make of education an issue at an event like this one. Because if there's anything that distinguishes Costa Rica from other countries, other than the fact that we do not have an armed force, that we decided voluntarily to abolish the army as a permanent institution back in 1949 to devote solely the resources of the state for human development purposes, is the fact that we have been investing in education for a long, long time. Public education, that is. And I think this is what makes a difference in many, many ways. Because education can be seen, yes, as the source of knowledge, but, and this is fundamentally what it is. It plays a very important role in making people more knowledgeable about everything, about personal relationships, about nature, about the construction of society, etc. But it also allows people to widen their perspective of things. The big thing about education, as my mother used to say, she was a teacher herself, was the fact of making the East and the West come together, North and South understand each other, in broadening our limits, in destroying the borders of imagination by allowing ideas to flow. Education makes its biggest contribution, and that's allowing us as a species, the human race, to be able to do one of the things that distinguishes the most from other animals, and that's the capacity to dream. And so I would like to say that in my own experience, education was very fundamental. My grandfather on my father's side didn't make it to school. He just went to primary school, to first grade in school. And my father only finished primary schooling. My mother, as I said, was a teacher, but on my father's side, that was it. They were shoemakers. And one of the things that Dad always insisted upon was for Mom to have her way and do what she felt had to be done in order to have us study. And he always complained that I was not going to be a shoemaker. He wanted myself to be a shoemaker. He made an attempt, but he didn't get too far because I was not as good as he was with his hands, crafting and cutting down the leather that was necessary for the shoes. But it was very important for the family, and this is probably the experience of many of your own families, to be able to have a good education for your children and for your grandchildren and for your great-grandchildren. So this is something that's not working. I'll do it this way. This is something I would like to stress. And the thing with education is you cannot improvise education. It takes a long time for education to settle and to make its contribution. And we have been investing in Costa Rica for over 150 years in our educational system. We have a constitutional mandate to spend up to 8% of our GDP in education, public education. And at this point, we're at 7.24% of that, or getting to that goal. And believe me, I'm doing my best to have it finished by the end of my term in 3 years. But even if I don't get there, the commitment continues to be something that's shared by everybody in all political parties. We have a 95% literacy rate. Obviously, this is not the case for the whole country. There are areas in the country where we still have pockets of illiteracy. But by and large, the population of Costa Rica is highly educated, and that means we also have people that are very proficient in different languages, particularly English. And 150 years after the big educational reform of 1869 took place, we are now one of the foremost countries in Latin America that attracts foreign direct investment as a result of our educational standards, as a result of our human talent. And so education is paying off. Again, I don't think we should invest in education only to make more money. That's fine. That's a legitimate objective. We have to invest in education to create better citizens, to make people be a better individual. But education pays off, even from an economic point of view. The principles that we uphold as a society in our education translate into concrete achievements. Costa Rica has moved to 51st place last year in the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Index, up 3 places from the year before and 10 places from 2 years ago. We are now ranked number 1 in Latin America for innovation, business and production processes sophistication. The English language proficiency and availability of researchers and engineers are common in the country, and we're 5th in the world regarding the crucial role that technology transfer plays in the country. Our mobile penetration is 151%. Yes, there are more active mobiles than people in the country. And this is a figure that's way over that of Mexico, the United States, or Colombia. And as a result of this, we also have more mobile internet penetration, and the rates are the highest in Latin America and surpass even those of Switzerland and Taiwan. Meanwhile, we have become a leader in the world of conservation. In the 1970s, we started a very wide program of creating national parks and conservation areas, which now cover 1/3 of the country's terrestrial extension. We're, by the way, only 51,000 square kilometers large. That's 25,000 square miles, the size of West Virginia. And we only have a population of 5 million people. So it's a small country and land, but we're 10 times that size because of in the sea. We have a larger territory at sea. And sustainable development, therefore, has become, as you saw in this video, a very important thing for us. One question that has been asked for the past few hours is how can you have a conservation regime such as that one and at the same time develop? And it's a big challenge. And I have insisted that we have to find ways to administer nature and sustainability wisely with people, not without people. We have to understand that this can be achieved. Today, and this is a good example of that, close to 90% of our electricity comes from clean and renewable sources. The first 3 months of this year, 100% of our electricity was produced by renewable sources. It was mainly hydroelectric. That means that 97% of our electricity on the average will be produced by renewable sources at the end of this year. As a result of this effort, we are ranked 3rd in the World Green Economy Index in 2015, only behind Sweden and Norway. So even if it's a minuscule country, it is also a country that can show some accomplishments. Now, obviously, this also benefits the business community. And it has been mentioned that Costa Rica is the 5th happiest country in the world. I insist that even if this was true, and I hope it is true, that doesn't mean we're perfect, and there are many things that we have to change and do things better. But you may not know that happy people are also highly skilled and they are motivated, and if they're happy, it's because they are innovative, and we have an ample supply of talented people, as I said, in many, many fields. So may it be in university graduates, in the business, economic, in engineering, in IT, logistics, multinational businesses fill close to 100% of their positions, being Costa Rica a source of talented individuals. All of this has allowed us to transform ourselves in a matter of 2 decades, 3 decades, from an agricultural economy heavily reliant on the export of coffee and bananas to a diverse and thriving economy. In 2015 alone, the main export of Costa Rica were medical devices, mostly produced by young women, interestingly enough, with highly talented and skilled labor force, and products, 4,500 products that we sell to 153 countries with preferential trade access to 2/3 of the world's GDP. That means 2.5 billion people. And that's something that we treasure very, very much. What's more, we have made a dramatic shift from labor-intensive to knowledge-intensive products. In other words, we're not manufacturing products anymore, or yes, we are, but we are also creating them. And I think that there's a difference, a very significant difference between making and creating. Nearly 40% of our manufactured exports can be classified as high-tech, and that figure dwarfs that of any other Latin American country, but it is also a larger amount than that of Korea, China, and in many ways also from the United States. And these capabilities increase every year, because one of the good things is that in the world of the competitive global economy of our days, all of these experiences add up. They become sediments upon which the next layer of sediments stands, and so it's moving ahead. And just to give you an example of how this works, since the 1990s, Intel, the high-tech company, has been a member of the Costa Rican family. And last year, Intel decided to move away part of their operations from Costa Rica to Asia. Yet, they also decided to bring in the Mega Lab, a huge undertaking they have that is now allowing Costa Rica not only to manufacture chips for computers, but also imagine, design, and test their products before they get to the market. And this has been an upgrading, a very significant change in the way we look at foreign direct investment, and we are now welcoming more industries that are interested in this kind of operations. So, what is the concrete result of that? Let me give you just a little bit of names here. The companies that are now located in Costa Rica, over 250 of them. Aspira, Boston Scientific, Infosys, Procter & Gamble, Baxter, St. Jude Medical, Western Union, HP, Amazon, Smiths Group, and Allergan. That's why our levels of foreign direct investment reached more than $2.3 billion in 2013. GMI is also there, I must say, which makes it even more importantly for us and more relevant to be here, because we want more investments like those that I've mentioned. That's why more than 250 high-tech companies, 21% of which are Fortune 100 companies, have established successful operations in and around San Jose. And that is why this city, the capital city of Costa Rica, has been named the leading outsourcing city in Latin America. And that's why, in addition to the Intel Mega Lab, last year alone we saw companies including VMware, Bacardi, IBM, Citi, Brightstar, and Zollner inaugurate operations and expand projects in Costa Rica, including shared services, which is an area in which Costa Rica has expanded. Now, this is also the result of the work of a lot of talented people, like my colleagues in CINDE, whose director is accompanying us at the Ministry of Trade, and also in the private sector, many of whose members are also very actively involved in these operations and also doing their own job, trying to link, and they have been doing that in very many and distinguished ways, the local economy with a more dynamic global economy. And I would like to acknowledge the presence here of three of the distinguished leaders of the Costa Rican business community, and I would like you to stand up and be recognized, please. Bankers, lawyers, and the president of the Industrial Chamber of Commerce, and also from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. What I would like to see in my administration for the next 3 years is, on the one hand, making the economy grow. We feel that this is the base. We have to make it stronger. Costa Rica is growing at a 3.1% growth rate a year. This is 3 times the average in Latin America. It's twice the growth of the larger economies in the world. So it's slow. We need to double that. But we're not doing such a bad job. The estimation of growth for this year is 4.1%. And so we want that to expand. And one of the ways in which I find this possible is by investing more heavily in infrastructures. We have up to $3.9 billion ready to be used in building more roads and schools and bridges and airports and things like that will allow us to make Costa Rica more connected to the world and the Costa Rican economy more competitive as such. Secondly, we will continue to fight extreme poverty, which is still very large. Structural poverty has been a problem for Costa Rica for many decades now. So around 21% of the country's population is considered to be poor or extremely poor. That is why I say not necessarily happiness comes with wealth. We have to. It's an economic problem, it's a social problem, but it's also a moral problem. I don't think a democracy such as ours can survive and be at peace every night if we know that 1/5 of the population is poor. So we are dealing with that, streamlining the programs that were designed in the past to deal with this population. And also we are fighting very strongly to introduce more transparency into local government. All in all, I was elected because people in Costa Rica wanted change. And yes, they're very anxious, and they're always telling me, you know, changing things rapidly enough. So I take note of that, but I also remind them that I was elected for 4 years, not for one, and that I hope that by the end of my term, most of these promises will be accomplished. But transparency, accountability are words that cannot be anymore dismissed in the ruling of democracies. And I think that we have to be very, very stern, very strict in dealing with these issues and responding to our citizenry with a lot of transparency in the way we do things. This is the new world order. It doesn't make things any easier for politicians to be transparent, but that's the mandate and that's our obligation, and this is something you all should be always demanding upon your public functionaries. And so, you know, as a historian, I'm always a little squirmish when it comes to saying that a country's experience has been unique, because every country's experience is unique in one way or another. So I don't want to say that Costa Rica's uniqueness makes it the reason why the rest of you who have not been to Costa Rica should visit us. But it is true that there are specificities in the country that need to be taken into advantage. And so maybe what I would like to say in closing is that when I look at our national experience and I look at cities, Charlotte, that have so many complementary conditions, and when I see such committed citizens, people who are so much interested in learning about other places, and this council is one of many examples of that, I can only say that I hope that we will continue to develop these bonds of friendship and of common interest in the future. If we do so, and even if we don't do business, which I hope we will do, a lot of business in the future, we will be able to do something more important than business. And that's to build bridges of goodwill, of peace-loving nations that know that liberty, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness, as your Declaration of Independence says, continues to be as relevant today as it was the day of the founding fathers of this republic. I thank you very much.
President Solis, thank you so much. It's a great honor and privilege to have you here in our community. And in keeping with our commitment to the President, we are going to get him out of here in about 15 minutes. What we did, just a little different than what we typically do, is we sent a note around and asked folks to submit some questions. We've pre-selected those, and we're going to start with David Schuford, a prominent attorney with Robertson Bradshaw. David, and all questioners, please keep your questions succinct, and we'll get whatever answers the President would like to deliver.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very much appreciate your taking the time to be with us in Charlotte. I would like to ask you to elaborate a little bit as a historian on the things that do make Costa Rica unique. Obviously, it is a success story in the region and has a different tract of development than its neighbors. And I think it would be great if you could just give us a little bit more of your view as a historian on the reasons for that.
Sure. A couple of things. First of all, Costa Rica was able to link to the world market sooner than most other countries in the Central American region. And the reason for that was that we discovered coffee. And coffee became the reason, la raison d'être of Costa Rica's linking with the world. This means that we were able to get more money for the products that we produced. We were able to avoid the problem that natural dyes, such as indigo and cochineal, the impact that the closing of the natural dyes market in the Industrial Revolution in Europe created for other countries. And this also generated an elite in Costa Rica that was able to construct the nation state earlier than any other place. We were at least 30 years earlier from other countries in the region in developing the nation state, in defining national boundaries, in establishing international relations. I mentioned that the founding of the Costa Rican Republic happened in 1848. This means that we became an independent republic earlier on, but we established a republican government for the first time in 1848 that allowed us to deal with, in our international relations, with the two biggest powers, world powers of the day, Britain and France. And in fact, if you look at our flag, our national flag, it's the only flag in Central America other than the Panamanian flag that wears red, and that's because it's the French flag horizontally. And this just gives an idea of how the country developed its international relations. So that's one thing. Secondly, in developing republican institutions, there was an early attempt to create democracy and democratic values to be established as the nation's political culture. Now, I'm not going to say that we've been a modern democracy since the time when officially the historians in Costa Rica say we did in 1889. There was a very imperfect democratic regime at the time, and we had a number of upheavals in the next 50 years that questioned the quality of Costa Rica's democracy. But nevertheless, the rule of law, for example, was solidly imprinted in the nation's state structure, and I think that's something very important. Now, clearly, after in the 1940s, something happened in Costa Rica, and that was the creation of a very solid social security regime. And this allowed for my country's social and political structure to appear to be more European or US than Latin American, in the sense that we were able to develop a bigger middle class. And this made a difference, because even when we kept this very large base of poor population, you had a much larger middle class, and this allowed for the social structure to be more flexible. In allowing the Costa Rican population to have social security regime like the European or Canadian regimes, not like in the case of the United States, you have a different experience with that. We were able to incorporate a very large number of the population to social well-being, both in terms of medical services as well as a pensions regime. And I think that was also very important. And then, to top it all, the decision to abolish the armed forces as a permanent institution in the 1949 Constitution allowed the country to use resources that otherwise would have been used to buy equipment and to pay for soldiers, to pay for teachers, and to be invested in other venues. And that for us was a great thing, because we had resources available that otherwise would have gone to other uses that were not as productive and as sensible in terms of social policy, which is ultimately what differs us from other experiences in the past. We've been more stable politically, we've been less conflictive socially, and we've been able to develop economically, not as fast as other countries in the region, but with more fairness in terms of the distribution of wealth, which is something that we are now working on because of the disequilibriums that have resulted from the last few years of economic development.
Thank you, Mr. President. Todd Skinner with AEG International. Are you out there with a mic? There it is.
Hello. Mr. President, thank you again for being here in Charlotte. happy to have you. I was wondering, for a company that's a U.S. company considering creating a base of operations in Latin America, should that company consider Costa Rica as such a base? And what are your plans? You mentioned infrastructure growth earlier. What are your plans for the airport in San Jose to reach not only Central America but South America?
Yes, of course. Well, there are a number of things that I would point at if you're looking at places to invest. First of all, political stability, security in general, low crime rates. This is a major consideration for some industries, especially if this means to send expatriates to producing elsewhere. We have one of the lowest ordinary crime rates in Central America. Not one of the lowest in Central America. It's one of the lowest in Latin America. Thirdly, I think the availability of human talent. Again, may not be the case of some industries, but we have been stimulating, particularly those that require the specialized labor force. We're beyond the point of offering cheap labor as our most significant advantage. There's also the question of connectivity. And yes, those of you who have traveled to Costa Rica, so I'm not gonna say a lie to you. You know the difficulties of moving around. It makes, let's put it this way, it makes tourists to be very concentrated in their traveling around, in driving around the country, because the roads are not always in very good shape. But in terms of getting connected from a business point of view, in terms of the number of flights that come in and out of San Jose and to San Jose every day, what Dave pointed out, the fact that we're in the same or very similar time zones, and that allows for the country to be very close to the United States. The business culture, the fact that a lot of people in Costa Rica have now experienced dealing with the population, the business community in the United States. The fact that we have CINDE, which is our investment promotion agency that can lead you through the entanglements of becoming a member of our economic community. The willingness of a government that continues to uphold the rule of law and to assure the investors that the law is going to be kept and that we're going to be mindful of our responsibilities in upholding the law. And also the experience of other companies who are making profits, I think should be the fundamental arguments for a U.S. company to go there. The testimonies we heard last night from GMI and other testimonies that you can hear and you can look in the internet about Costa Rica's conditions, I think are the most important arguments. And in terms of infrastructure, we're going to be developing more roads and ports, both from the private as well as public sectors. For example, we are now in the midst of discussing a new road, the expansion of a new road from San Jose to the Caribbean port of Limon. We just started a couple of months ago the construction of a containers terminal, world-class containers terminal by APM, which is a subsidiary of Merck's. And this is opening up a lot of interesting possibilities for the Caribbean region of Limon, the province of Limon. And in terms of the airport, there are expansion plans going on. There's the idea of a second international airport that will be built, but this is going to take some time, in the outskirts of San Jose, some 45 kilometers away from San Jose. But we're upholding and upgrading the facilities at the airport in Liberia, in the northern part of the country. And so this, as well as the investments that we have already committed in the regional airports, I think will allow us to have better facilities. Just 4 months ago, I also inaugurated a second stage of a very big port, multi-purpose port in Caldera, near Punta Arenas. So we are going to have two very good ports in the Pacific and the Caribbean, and that is going to help very much. Again, in terms of the airport, the second international airport will have to be built in the next 10 to 15 years. In the meantime, we hope to expand Aeropuerto Juan Santa Maria and do a much better job in Liberia.
And we're next going to Irene Sandoval. Irene?
Good afternoon, everyone. Señor Presidente, qué honor tenerlo aquí. Yo soy de Costa Rica.
Muchas gracias.
Orgullosamente tica, and welcome to Charlotte. Welcome to the Queen City. It's such an honor to have you here. My question to you is, what are your government's 3 main priorities for Costa Rica for the next 3 years of your tenure? And can you briefly explain how are you going to execute them? Muchas gracias.
Con mucho gusto. Muchas gracias a usted, Irene. Well, I've mentioned the three pillars of our national development plan. One is to make the economy grow. Secondly, it's to fight against extreme poverty and do this by generating jobs, decent jobs, well-paid jobs for the people, not only making transfers to them. That's the easy way to get rid of bad statistics. Just transferring money to families directly. We will do that in some cases. Extreme poverty deserves that and requires that. But what we would like to do is to expand the economy so that more people can get good jobs. And thirdly, our commitment with transparent government. Now, this is very interesting because the challenges I have as President of Costa Rica at this particular time in history are huge. Just last May the 1st, I gave my first State of the Union address to an opposition Congress. I only have 13, and that's if I'm optimistic. 13 out of 57 deputies. That's the size of the official party's representation in our unicameral parliament. But even if I had those 13, and sometimes I wonder if I have 13 deputies, the situation is very interesting because just on the 1st of May, we also lost the control of the board of directors of the legislative. In other words, this would be the situation in which I am now. It would be similar to yours in the United States if both the Republican and the Democratic parties were to lose the upcoming election to an independent candidate, and yet they would keep the control of the chambers, so both in the Senate and the House, which is interesting thought. Okay, but this is what the people mandated. Okay, this is what we asked for. They were sick and tired of doing business as usual in politics. And they said, no longer. This is it. We don't want this. And with the wisdom that peoples have in democracy, they decided that they were not going to give me all the power to do the changes that they demand, and that they were going to do the checks and balances in giving this divided authority to the executive and to the legislative. So this is the closest we've ever been to a parliamentarian system within a presidentialist system. And it's taking time for people to understand that now we have to agree more, now we have to negotiate more, now we have to go forging alliances project by project, that we have to be very mature in the way we handle relations with each other. And believe me, it's taking time, but it's worth pursuing. And I'm certain that these 3 pillars will be upheld simply because I find that mature democracies, such as yours and ours, can do things differently. And we don't require an authoritarian president to do this. In fact, I've committed myself of not running anymore. This is going to be my first and last experience as a president of Costa Rica. I will not run a re-election campaign because I'm deeply committed to the notion that my country can live without a president ever re-electing himself or herself because we don't need that. It's not desirable. It's not desirable. And I wish we had the opportunity you have in the United States to re-elect consecutively a good president. This is not the case in Costa Rica. President has to get out of office and wait 2 terms before he's re-elected again. That's just not a good system. So might as well just leave the space for somebody else more capable than I to take over. But what you need is to have a lot of talented people willing to work around a dialogue, a national dialogue. So yes, I hope that these 3 priorities, making the economy larger, addressing the question of poverty and ensuring transparency will be achieved by the conditions we have, which are objective conditions. I mean, the economy is growing, the deficit has been stabilized, inflation is the lowest in 40 years. Our exports are moving. Our investments are coming to the country. We have we have all these conditions, and only is 5 million people. Small. We fit 5 times in New York City. Talk about governability. This is it, And I'm sure that if we are able to get all these pieces together, and we're doing that very clearly, it's going to be fine. And in 3 years' time, when I give my band to the next president, I'll be able to find myself at ease, knowing that the next morning I will be able to look at the mirror and say, oh, you did a good job. Now go and work. Go back to the university and work hard and keep on doing good work.
We're going to take 2 more questions, I'm told. President Solis, we don't like our guests to leave without actually having to answer some hardball questions. Most of those come from our students. And so we've slated Jacob Bonstein, who's in the 8th grade at Charlotte Country Day.
First of all, welcome to Charlotte, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jacob.
The question I have for you today is, how can Costa Rica continue to build on high education levels, low crime rate, and an overall high quality of life? And how can the United States help?
That's a very good question. And, I met President Obama for the first time during the Summit of the Americas in Panama. And he asked the same question. I know he's been consulting with you, but he asked the same question. And my answer to him, I think he laughed. He smiled. I didn't laugh. He smiled. But seriously, I said to him, Mr. President, make your economy grow. That's going to help us a lot. Because we have such an intense relationship, the economy of Costa Rica and that of the United States, that would probably be the best way to help, in the sense that as the United States grows, there's more investment readily available to move around, and the markets are open up for products. This is also true with Europe, mind you, and because that's our second largest trade partner. There are other things. For example, the insistence of the United States in dealing with climate change issues. This is and other environmental issues. This is something we do treasure very, very much. In fact, one of the things I told President Obama was that we were going to continue striving for becoming a carbon neutral country by the year 2021, which is our commitment. This is a commitment that previous governments did. We need an electric train just like the one you have here in Charlotte to accomplish that goal. Because Costa Rica has a problem with the amount of cars in our streets. But the United States can also support us, and we can support the United States in achieving these more strict levels of environmental records. Thirdly, we're cooperating a lot in terms of regional security, particularly fighting organized crime, and especially that crime related with drugs, illegal drugs. So those are 3 ideas. There are more ways to do this. Fortunately, we have a very good relationship with the United States, and therefore we have a permanent ongoing dialogue with the United States, which is, among other things, what Ambassador Macaya does all the time, being certain that we will be able to achieve these levels of excellent relations that we want to keep.
And we're going to conclude with a question from our good friend, Dr. Maggie Cummins from Queen's University. Maggie.
Mr. President, welcome. I am also a professor of political science at Queen's University. And so my question for you is about U.S. foreign policy toward Latin America. What do you see as the primary goals of that policy, and how effective do you think that policy is?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just last year, Costa Rica was the presidency pro tempore of the CELAC, the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. And in having that important role, we insisted upon the universal nature of our relationships in Latin America. We like to think that Costa Rica can have a very broad approach to all the different perspectives of Latin American foreign policies. Obviously, there are countries such as Uruguay or Chile with which we feel very comfortable simply because of the way in which we view the region. And what I would like to say is that there are so many new initiatives in the Latin American realm in terms of organizing the region that we would like to see them talking more to each other. I mean, if you look at the traditional multilateral organizations in the region, you'll find the Organization of American States taking a role. This is the longest, the oldest, and also the space in which Latin American countries plus Canada and the United States have decided to build upon the institution to generate international law. So that needs to be respected, and we have no qualms whatsoever with the OAS, its role, its being in Washington. We feel that this is very important. We also feel that it's necessary to have the sub-regional organizations such as the Caribbean Community or the Andean Community or the Southern Cone or the Central American Integration System in place and working well. There are specific regional needs that require special addressings by these sub-regional groupings. And then we have what's known as new regionalism. These are organizations or groupings of countries such as CELAC or the different instances of regional organizations. Costa Rica has relations with all of them. And I've insisted very, very sternly that we need to have a very active presence in the Central American integration system. This is something that many Costa Ricans are reluctant with. I find it necessary for our country to take the lead in the Central American region simply because there's so much that we can offer in terms of presenting our views and helping the region to move forward. We can't do this alone. It's a very small place. Central America is the whole region of Central America, including Panama, is half the size of Colombia. So this just gives you an idea of how small the region is. And in order to do well in the world's international scenario today, you need to add up. Plus, the other factors, the challenges we face sometimes require a regional outlook, such as security or environmental challenges. They cannot be solved simply by the efforts of one single country. So this is the way I like to think of us in Latin America, a country that speaks with all, that's selective in the way and defends its principles and values, even at the sight of larger interlocutors, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, Chile, Colombia. We have our own views of things, but also willing to understand the need for this dialogue and the solidarity among the nations of South America in a very difficult and challenging international world.
If you would join me in thanking President Soli for coming to visit with us.